So what if the key to fixing our, totally frustrating healthcare system actually came from the same tech that powers ChatGPT? I know, it sounds like a real stretch, right? But believe it or not, a single revolutionary idea from back in 2017 might just be the answer. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, first things first, we need to frame the problem. And this quote, wow, it gets right to the heart of it. Just think about this. For every single hour a doctor or nurse spends with a patient, with you, they're spending 2 hours fighting with their computer. And a lot of that is happening after hours. This isn't just, inefficient. It is a direct cause of burnout for the very people we trust to keep us healthy.
So that begs the big question, right? Why? I mean, we all have these incredible supercomputers in our pockets. And yet the software that runs our hospitals, the stuff that doctors and nurses have to use every single day, is just notoriously frustrating and slow. What is going on?
Well, if you dig into this, you'll find one name at the center of it all almost every time: Epic Systems. These guys are the absolute dominant force in electronic health records, or EHRs, as you'll hear them called. And just to give you an idea of their scale, they hold the health records for over 305 million patients. That's a huge number.
And as you can probably guess, getting these massive systems up and running costs an absolute fortune. I'm not talking about a few $1,000,000 here. These are astronomical price tags. Look at this. Mass General Brigham spent $1.6 billion. A single region in Denmark, almost 3 billion Danish kroner. Helsinki's hospital district was already over 600 million euros by late 2022. Just incredible.
So you'd think for that kind of money, the rollout would be smooth, right? Well, not exactly. And this is not just a US problem, it's a global headache. In the UK, one implementation led to what was literally called a catastrophic loss of confidence. In Denmark, doctors actually signed a petition to get rid of it. In Finland, you had 619 doctors file a formal complaint because they were worried about patient safety. And maybe most shockingly, in Norway, over 90% of doctors in the affected hospitals said the system was a threat to their patients' health. 90%.
Okay, so you've got this picture, right? Widespread, expensive frustration building up in healthcare all over the world. But at the very same time, something completely different was happening. A quiet revolution was starting in a field that felt like it was a million miles away: AI research.
And then, in 2017, this paper comes out. It had a deceptively simple, kind of bold title: Attention is All You Need. And you can see from this Reddit comment, this wasn't just another academic paper. Nope. People in the know saw it as one of the most important developments in, well, forever. It was about to change everything.
So what is this attention thing anyway? In the simplest terms, it's a trick that lets an AI model, well, pay attention. Just like when you're reading a sentence and some words just pop out as more important, this mechanism lets the model figure out which parts of the data matter most. And this idea? It's the absolute core of what's called the transformer architecture. That's the engine behind all the AI you hear about constantly, like GPT.
To really get why attention is such a game changer, you got to look at what we had before. There was this older method kind of hilariously called bag of words. And it did exactly what it sounds like. It just threw all the words in a bag and treated them all as equally important. So for that model, please no outside food means the exact same thing as please no food outside. The order just gets lost. But with attention, it's totally different. It's more like a weighted average. It understands that some words are more important, and crucially, that the order of the words creates a completely different meaning.
So here are 3 really simple ways you can think about this. 1, you can picture it as a kind of soft mask that just highlights the important bits of data. Or 2, you can think of it as a weighted average, where not everything is treated equally. But honestly, the easiest way to think about it is just like our own attention. It's simply a way for the machine to decide what to focus on.
All right, I know what you're thinking. You see the actual formula and, yeah, it looks pretty intimidating. Lots of letters, lots of symbols, but trust me, the idea behind it is way simpler than it looks. We're going to break this down step by step so it makes perfect sense.
Okay, so what's really going on here is this little 4-step dance. First, you have a query, let's call it Q, and Q goes up to a bunch of keys, we'll call them K, and asks a simple question: hey, how relevant are you to me? Then we take all the answers it gets back and we scale them down, just to keep things from getting out of control. Step 3, we use this thing called softmax to turn all those scores into nice, clean percentages that add up to 100%. And finally, we use those percentages to create a weighted average of the actual stuff, the values, or V. And that's it. That's the whole magic trick right there.
And this is where things get really, really cool. Researchers started wondering,
Okay, if this attention thing is so good at understanding relationships between words, what else could it understand? And this paper title just says it all. They had this brilliant idea. What if you chop up an image into a bunch of little squares and just treat those squares like they're words in a sentence?
And that one idea just opened the floodgates. Suddenly, this core concept of attention became the engine for breakthroughs everywhere. We're talking vision transformers that can see, nerfs that can build incredible 3D scenes out of flat pictures, and even AlphaFold, which can predict the unbelievably complex shapes of proteins. This thing it's just everywhere now.
So, that brings us all the way back to where we started. We have this incredibly powerful, super flexible idea that's amazing at finding the important stuff in pretty much any kind of data. So how in the world does this connect back to those clunky, frustrating health records we were talking about?
Well, the difference is just night and day. Think about it. The old way, the systems we have now, they demand everything be in perfect, rigid boxes. It forces doctors to click through endless menus and checkboxes. But an AI-powered system, one built with attention, it can understand natural human language. It could literally listen to a doctor's dictated notes or read an email from a patient and pull out what's important. Instead of locking information away, it can see the patterns across a patient's entire, messy, complicated history.
The whole point of this is to build a system that finally works for the people using it, right? I mean, just imagine a system that adapts to how a doctor actually works, instead of forcing that doctor to adapt to some crazy software bureaucracy. That's the real promise here, to free up our doctors and nurses to focus on what matters, the patients, not the keyboard.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought. For decades, the thinking has been that to make healthcare better, we just need humans to enter more and more data into more and more boxes. But what if the answer is the complete opposite? What if the real key to a more human, more caring healthcare system is to finally let the machines do the busy work of paying attention for us?